All right, diving in today, folks, we're looking at group art therapy,
Okay.
and we've got this like really comprehensive handbook to guide us.
Right.
So think of this deep dive as like your shortcut to really understanding how art can, well, how it can help people communicate and express themselves, especially when they're, facing challenges together in a group setting.
Yeah, and what's really amazing about this handbook is that it's so practical.
Mhm.
It gives you tons of actual approaches to using art in all these different group settings.
Right.
And what's really striking right off the bat is just the sheer range of groups that can benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, kids struggling with various issues to
Yeah.
support groups for Asian women, staff teams, even just community workshops.
Okay.
It just shows you how incredibly adaptable and useful this approach can be.
It does. And you know what's really interesting? The book actually points out how the whole understanding of this field has like evolved over time. Initially, they said things like race, culture, diversity, these really important aspects weren't really given enough thought.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really fascinating for you, listening in.
Okay.
The handbook really stresses the importance of this shift towards inclusivity.
Yeah.
And they even mention specifically the Art Therapy Race and Culture Group.
Oh, the ARC group.
Yeah, part of the British Association of Art Therapists and their contributions to understanding this connection between, art and people's different lived experiences.
I think that's a really crucial point.
Yeah.
This move towards inclusivity isn't just some passing trend. It
Uh-huh.
really reflects a fundamental understanding that how we see art, how we interpret art,
Mhm.
it's all tied up with cultural context.
Right.
What might be a symbol of hope in one culture could mean something completely different in another culture.
Wow.
So recognizing and respecting those subtle differences, those nuances, that's absolutely essential for group art therapy to really be effective.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into some of the basic ideas here.
Okay, sure.
The handbook, the first few chapters, they lay out some core principles.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is this idea that art can be an incredibly precise way to express feelings,
Right.
especially, when words just aren't enough.
Yeah.
Think about situations where verbal communication is tough, significantly impaired, like maybe
Mhm.
someone who has dementia.
Right.
Art can be like this direct line to their inner world.
Absolutely. And it's not just about expressing one single feeling, right?
Okay.
The visual nature of art, it means you can actually show multiple things at once, all these different aspects of an experience.
Yeah.
It's not like language, which has to go in a line, one word after another.
Yeah.
A picture can hold all these layers of emotion, all these interconnected ideas.
So it's like capturing this whole landscape of feeling.
Exactly, in a single frame.
Right. That's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
And they also talk about how the process of actually creating the art itself can be transformative.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? We can bring up feelings that maybe were hidden or jumbled up,
Mhm.
leading to, greater self-awareness.
Right, more clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you listening, the goal of this deep dive is
Yeah.
to really get a handle on the practical side of actually running these art therapy groups.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go through everything from planning and the materials you'd need to how themes can be used effectively and how to deal with those inevitable challenges that always come up when you have a group of people working together.
Yeah. I mean, we really want to give you a solid understanding of what makes these groups tick
Mm-hmm.
and offer insights that you can use, whether you're already working with groups or maybe you're thinking about going into this field,
Mhm.
or even if you're just interested in how groups function, how people interact and how creative expression can play a role in that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So let's start by kind of laying the groundwork.
Okay. Yeah.
The handbook talks about all the different ways that group work can be classified.
Mm-hmm.
Like they look at the client group, the aims, the theoretical kind of underpinnings, the actual methods that are used, even how long the group meets for.
Right.
They even reference Brown's work from back in '92
Yeah.
and Whitaker's stuff from 2001. It just shows you how difficult it is to put these groups into neat little boxes.
It's true. It's a really dynamic field.
Yeah.
And I think, what's interesting is that while these classifications can be useful when you're, talking about it academically,
Right.
the reality of running a group,
Yeah.
it's often much more fluid, much more organic.
Right.
But the key takeaway here, I think, is the importance of structure, especially for those group members who might be feeling a bit anxious, uncertain.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Having that predictable framework,
Yeah.
it can really provide a sense of safety
Right.
and allow them to really get into the process.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And in so many situations, real world situations,
Yeah.
time is such a huge constraint, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're talking about a one-off community workshop, a short training course, even in hospitals where stays are often pretty limited.
Right.
The book really emphasizes how using focused themes can be really helpful.
Yeah. When time is tight,
Yeah.
having a well-chosen theme, it's like a guide,
Right.
It focuses the art making,
Right.
and then it also helps to focus the discussion afterwards.
Oh, okay.
But it goes beyond just saving time.
Yeah.
A shared theme can actually be a really powerful way to build that group cohesion.
Oh, how so?
Well, because it gives the members this common experience to draw on
Okay.
and a shared language to use when they're exploring their own individual views.
Yeah.
So it brings them together.
So let's dig a bit deeper into this whole idea of themes.
Okay, sure.
The book explains that themes can be used in all sorts of ways. Like it could be something as basic as, setting a boundary,
Right.
like saying, okay, everybody has to use only 3 colors.
Mm.
Or it could be a more like structured activity,
Yeah.
like those nonverbal crayon conversations that Liebmann talked about back in 79.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like there's this whole spectrum of possibilities.
There is. And what's so cool about themes is that they provide that structure without being so rigid that they stifle people's creativity.
Right.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
And the Handbook has this really compelling example of how an on-literal theme
Okay.
can create a really safe space for really deep communication to happen.
Oh, you mean like the metaphorical portraits game?
Yes,
I was
exactly.
just reading about that.
So in that exercise, people create a metaphorical portrait of another person in the group.
Okay.
And the Handbook describes a situation in a day workshop where one woman drew another woman as a brick wall.
A brick wall.
Yes, but with this little green tree growing beside it.
Oh, wow.
And what's fascinating is that this approach, it wasn't confrontational at all,
Right.
but it allowed them to talk about their relationship, which was actually quite difficult
Okay.
in a way that they just hadn't been able to do with just words.
I see.
The brick wall, it represented this barrier between them. And the trees symbolized hope, the potential for growth.
Wow.
And this led to a real shift in how they communicated.
That's amazing.
It really shows you how art can get around those defenses people put up and open up these new paths to understanding each other.
That's a really powerful example.
It-
Okay, so moving on to the more like practical side of things.
Yes.
The Handbook goes into detail about all the different art materials that are typically used in group art therapy.
Right.
We're talking about like drawing materials galore,
Yeah.
oil pastels,
Yeah.
Conte crayons, charcoal, those water-soluble crayons. Then there's paper, all different kinds, textures, sizes, colors,
Yeah.
card for 3D stuff.
Yep.
And of course, clay,
Of course.
from stoneware to earthenware, which you have to fire to the self-hardening kinds.
Yeah, and don't forget good old plasticine.
Oh, yeah, for modeling.
Yeah.
So it seems like having a well-stocked art cupboard is pretty essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Having that variety of materials lets people choose what feels right for them in the moment.
Right.
Someone might be drawn to the feel of clay if they're feeling grounded,
Yeah.
while someone else might connect with the fluidity of watercolors if they're exploring emotions that feel more, fluid. The point is giving people those options. It empowers them to express themselves authentically in a way that really resonates with them.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so another really important practical point the book brings up is the use of interpreters.
Oh, yeah.
When there are language barriers.
Right.
And they stress that you need to use accredited professional interpreters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like relying on informal arrangements just just isn't good enough.
No, it's not about just translating words, you know?
Right.
It's about making sure there's real understanding, emotional resonance.
Yeah.
Language carries so much, cultural weight, emotional baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Even if someone speaks some of the main language of the group,
Yeah.
having an interpreter who's fluent in their native language can make a huge difference.
Right.
It allows for much deeper, more nuanced expression of feelings.
And the emphasis on accredited professionals, that's all about ethics.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Confidentiality,
Mm-hmm.
avoiding any misunderstandings or conflicts of interest.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the handbook also gets into some of the institutional factors
Okay.
that can really affect how a group works.
Right.
Things like scheduling constraints,
Mm-hmm.
the level of support for the art therapy program from within the institution,
Right.
and even potential clashes between the group's aims and the institution's aims.
Yeah, it's like the environment the group's operating in,
Yeah.
it can really make a difference.
Yeah.
If there aren't enough resources or
Yeah.
if the staff don't understand what the group's trying to do,
Right.
that can create obstacles.
Yeah.
And conflicting aims can really confuse people in the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So being aware of those factors and
Yeah.
being an advocate for the group, that's a big part of the facilitator's job.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So then there are the ground rules,
Oh,
which are, essential for any group to function well.
Mm.
The book goes through all sorts of things. Expectations around participation, sharing
Right.
time limits, attendance policies for closed groups,
Mm-hmm.
even whether people are allowed to talk while they're making art.
Yeah, I mean, it might seem obvious, but it's important to be clear about those things,
Okay.
especially for people who haven't been in groups before.
Yeah.
And that decision about talking during the art making,
Mm.
that can have a big impact on the whole group dynamic.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Some people think silence helps people go deeper inside themselves.
Okay.
Others encourage conversation as part of the whole creative process.
I see.
It really depends.
So group size is another important thing to consider, right?
Well, absolutely.
The book says smaller groups, like 6 to 8 people,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to feel more intimate.
Right. People get more individual attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But larger groups can offer more perspectives.
Yes. And sometimes a bit of anonymity,
Oh, okay.
which some people find helpful.
Yeah.
The book also talks about, the practical issue of people dropping out. Oh, right.
And how sometimes you might have to over-recruit
yeah,
just to make sure the group stays viable.
that's a good point.
Yeah. If too many people drop out,
Mm-hmm.
it can disrupt the whole flow of things.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about the facilitator themselves?
Okay.
Should they be making art along with the group?
Interesting question.
The book actually gives arguments for both sides.
Right.
Like, on the one hand, joining in sets an example. It
Mhm.
creates that sense of shared experience.
Yeah, they even talk about Greenwood and Leighton's idea of side-by-side therapy.
Side by side, what does that mean?
It's a more collaborative approach
Okay.
where the facilitator actually engages in the art making alongside the group members.
Oh, interesting.
But then on the other hand,
Yeah.
there are reasons why the facilitator might choose to just observe,
Okay.
focus on organization, making sure everyone has support,
Right.
keeping an eye on the overall dynamic.
Yeah.
It's a judgment call.
It just sounds like, yeah, you have to weigh the pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
If the facilitator gets too caught up in their own artwork,
Yeah,
they might miss things that are happening in the group.
that's true.
So it's about finding that balance.
Right.
Making the choice that's best for the group's goals.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens after the art is done.
Okay.
The whole discussion and interpretation part.
Right.
The book describes different ways to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you could have the discussion right away, or you could wait until a later session.
Yeah, like that example they give of
yeah.
the family therapist who reviews the pictures with a colleague
Hey, you
before
should
the
give
next session.
That seems like it could give you a more objective perspective.
It can. It
Right.
gives both the participants and therapist time to think things over.
Hmm.
In that example, it allowed the therapist to process the artwork with someone else,
Okay.
get a fresh viewpoint,
Right.
and then bring it back to the group in a more constructive way. Yeah.
The next session.
Okay, so when it comes to introducing themes for the artwork,
Right.
the book suggests a few different approaches.
Mm-hmm.
You could build on what came up in the previous sessions.
Yeah.
You could pay attention to the overall atmosphere of the group.
Right. Like they talk about that women's group on the housing estate
Oh, yeah.
and how the safe place theme came up.
That was a great example.
It was.
Yeah.
It shows how important it is to be sensitive to the unspoken needs of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Those things that are bubbling under the surface.
Right.
A good facilitator can sense those things
Yeah, yeah.
and then use them to create a really meaningful session.
And they could even address the group dynamics directly, right?
Absolutely. If there are tensions or patterns emerging in the group,
Yeah.
you can use a theme to explore those things.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the book also talks about this really important shift in thinking about how we interpret the artwork.
Moving away from this idea that the therapist is the only expert.
Oh, right, yeah.
The one who holds the key to understanding everyone's pictures.
Yeah, that idea came from the early days of art therapy when it was very tied to psychoanalysis. But these days, most therapists work in lots of different settings.
Yeah.
And they draw on all sorts of theories.
Right.
It's not about the therapist telling people what their art means.
It's more collaborative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The focus is on helping the group members explore their own artwork and come to their own understanding. The meaning emerges through their own reflections and the discussions they have with each other.
I see.
It's a much more empowering approach.
It is.
Yeah.
The book also addresses this challenge of unfinished business.
Oh, right.
Those times when feelings or issues come up in a session, but they don't get fully resolved.
Yeah, that can be tricky.
It can, especially in community groups where there might not be that same level of ongoing support.
Absolutely. In a hospital or a clinic, there are usually systems in place, follow-up appointments.
Yeah.
But in a community setting, the facilitator might need to provide information about other resources.
Okay.
Or really manage the emotional intensity in the session to make sure people don't leave feeling overwhelmed.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about how groups develop over time.
Okay, group dynamics.
Yeah, the book talks about those stages of group development.
Oh, right. Forming, storming, norming, performing, and ending.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are classic stages.
And understanding those stages, it can help people who are leading groups. Right?
Oh, absolutely. It helps you anticipate what might happen. The storming stage, for example.
Yeah.
That's where there might be some conflict, people testing boundaries.
Yeah.
But that's normal. It's part of the group figuring out who they are.
Okay.
So if you know that's coming, you can handle it better.
Yeah.
You can help the group move through it and become more cohesive.
And even the ending stage, even if it's a short-term group,
Right.
there can be all sorts of emotions there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, that need to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
The book also really emphasizes how important it is to record and evaluate each session.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they say the session isn't over until you've done that.
Right. You need to reflect on what happened, talk it over with any co-facilitators.
Right.
Make plans for the next session.
Even just the facilitator, like drawing an image that reflects their experience of the session.
That can be really helpful.
Yeah.
It's a way to process what happened.
Yeah.
Learn from it.
And when it comes to getting feedback from the group members themselves,
Right.
the handbook suggests a few different methods. Like, you could have specific evaluation sessions.
Yeah.
Questionnaires with different scales.
Right, like a Likert scale, where people rate things from, strongly agree to strongly disagree.
Right.
Or you could even look back at the artwork in ongoing groups to see how people are progressing.
Yeah, and they even give examples of questions you can ask.
Those can be really helpful in sparking discussion.
They can.
Yeah, it's all about getting that direct feedback.
Right.
So you can see how the group is experiencing things and make adjustments if you need to.
And they talk about audits, too.
Oh, right, like that example of the anger management group.
Yeah, where they noticed a big difference in the dropout rates between men and women.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It was.
It made them question whether the group was really working for everyone.
Right, if it was designed in a way that maybe appealed more to one gender than another.
Exactly. That kind of data can be really eye-opening.
It can.
It can help you identify areas where you need to improve.
Yeah.
Make things more inclusive.
Now, the book also touches on evidence-based practice and quantitative research in art therapy.
Right.
And they acknowledge that it's tough to apply those really strict scientific methods to something as subjective as artwork.
Yeah, and personal experiences. It's not like measuring, blood pressure or something. Art is much more nuanced.
Right,
so traditional research methods can fall short.
Okay.
They don't capture the whole picture.
But they do mention outcome studies as another way to approach research.
Yeah, those can be helpful.
Yeah.
They look at, whether people's symptoms improve or if their overall functioning gets better.
Right.
But I think it's still really important to understand the individual's experience through their art.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the book also reminds us that things don't always go smoothly.
Oh, right. The messy reality of group work. It's not always like those perfect scenarios you read about.
They even share some examples of co-facilitator problems.
Oh, yeah.
Like one staff member taking over or people being late and disrupting the flow.
Like that example of Graham arriving late.
Yeah, to the group that was really focused on a specific activity.
It threw everyone off.
It did.
Yeah. Those real-world examples are important. They show you that you have to be flexible,
right,
adaptable.
Yeah.
Things don't always go according to plan.
And they also talk about how to handle strong emotions that come up in the group.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
Like tears, conflict, even aggression, and how the artwork can actually be a container for those feelings.
It can. It's like a safe space to express those things.
The examples they give are really vivid.
They are. They show you how those tough moments can actually be opportunities for growth.
Right, even if they feel uncomfortable in the moment.
Exactly. Art can be a way to express emotions that are hard to put into words. It can be cathartic.
Yeah.
And the artwork itself, it becomes a tangible representation of those feelings. So you can look at it, reflect on it, talk about it.
And they also give guidance on knowing when to intervene.
Oh, right. That's important.
And when to kind of step back and let the group work things out on their own.
They reference Whitaker's work on that.
Yeah, it's like this balance between being an active facilitator and trusting the group to find their own way.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
It takes experience and careful observation.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So the book is full of examples of different groups and themes in action.
It is. It's really helpful to see how this stuff plays out in real life.
The Friday group example really stood out to me.
Oh, yeah, the one with the lifeline theme.
Yeah, it was amazing how people interpreted that same theme in such personal ways.
Right, like Mary, who used that sellotaped paper.
Yeah, to represent different stages of her life.
And Leslie with those layered paintings. They showed her depression and all those major life events.
It was really powerful.
It was, it shows you how a simple prompt like that can bring out such deep and diverse experiences.
And then there's the group mural.
Oh, yeah, where everyone worked on one big artwork together.
It's fascinating how you can see both the group dynamics and the individual expression.
It's like a visual metaphor for how those things intertwine.
Yeah.
The way different elements connect or clash. It tells you a lot about what's happening in the group.
We also see how they use the past, present, and future theme in a psychiatric day hospital.
Right. That's a classic theme.
It seems like it provides a really good structure for people to explore their own experiences.
It does. It gives them a framework.
Yeah.
But within that, they have the freedom to express themselves.
And then there's the group sculpture, clay trees example.
Oh, yeah. That one was really interesting.
Oh, nice.
You could see how the individual trees reflected people's personalities. But then the way they arranged them together, that showed the group dynamics.
Right, like Dan's mountain and that welcoming house he made.
Exactly. It was like he was inviting people in.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then there's that great example of the I Wonder Wall activity.
With the young women with eating disorders.
Yeah, and how the therapist used that T-shirt incident
That was clever.
to create a theme that really resonated with the group.
It shows you how important it is to be present,
Yeah.
to pay attention to what's happening in the moment,
Right.
and be willing to adapt.
And we also get glimpses into other groups like the day hospital group exploring family emotions, the anger management group that used art, sharing, and relaxation techniques.
Right, a multimodal approach.
And the long-term community group that focused on the natural world.
Yeah, that was a great way to engage people.
It seems like there's no limit to how art therapy can be used.
It's incredibly versatile.
It is.
It can be tailored to all sorts of needs.
And then there are those examples from the day hospital for older adults, the work with children using the family tree theme,
Right.
that moving silent session that connected to the Christmas star.
That one was beautiful.
Very symbolic.
And the Asian women's group exploring nice things I do for my daughter.
And that workshop for the residential children's workers?
Yeah, where they use the family tree theme to help them understand.